All right, so thanks for joining us today. As Jana mentioned, this is the third town hall, and the previous two town halls, if you missed them, they are available on the website. However, today should cover and provide a better update and complement those two. So if you watch and pay attention today, then you probably don't need the previous two, but you're welcome to always check them out. So we're going to do a 3-point presentation today. I'll start and just give a few higher level things, and then we'll get into the meat of the discussion with Patrick, who's presenting from Edmonton. He's our Director of Operations, but he's normally in Calgary. And Sergey from USAC. He's our storage expert, and he'll be providing you all the information you need to know about Silo and where your data is and where it's going to go. So first I'll give a brief overview, a sneak preview of some of the results that we've been finding from our user survey that we put out in the beginning, or the end of August actually. Then I'll just briefly touch on some of WestGrid's future plans. I'm just giving a bunch of teasers today is all I'm doing. And then I'm going to give you a little funding update. So exciting when everybody cares about the money. And then I'll pass it over to the others to talk about those, the migration plans, tech refresh, rack changes, etc. So just a little bit on the survey. I wanted to thank the 235 respondents we had. 88% of those responses came in the first 48 hours. So if you're going to launch a survey, pick the timing right because you get a massive response and then it really just trickles off. Amazing feedback. It was a lot of quantity, but it was also very high quality. Lots of information, and it wasn't all complaining. There was some complaining, but a lot of it was actually constructive feedback that we could use to make for a better user experience for our researchers. 36% were faculty, and the percentage of respondents from disciplines seemed to match the percentage of users. So we had a very, lots of people from the engineering, life sciences, chemistry, biochemistry, because that's where most of our large users are. So we weren't too surprised by this. There were other disciplines, but 60% were from these big user domains. And we learned a lot about what our users need. For example, 22% of respondents feel they do not have adequate local ARC support. So we need to drill down into this data a little bit more to find out, is it just they're not aware of the people local on their campus, or are there gaps? Or could we somehow access remote support in their particular domain that they're searching? Some of the people, when we asked, who on campus is giving you great support, they name people that actually aren't on our staff. So I think there's kind of a communication issue, and we need to really figure out who's available and communicate this well to users. And we learned that parallel programming is a training session that most are interested in, with a large response of 49%. And 15% felt that they did not have adequate support in their domain. So once again, we need to drill down and find out why our users aren't being supported, and if there are gaps, how we might be able to address these. So 60% of the respondents have used WestGrid support in some form in the past year, whether through in-person, phone, or email. And over 80% thought the support received was good, in the sense that it was helpful support, it addressed what they were asking, as well as it was a timely response. And 47 respondents felt someone in particular had been extremely helpful. So I put a few quotes there. Excellent support on campus, we just need more like him. Support services are not the problem, but cycles are too hard to get. We hear this time and time again. Hopefully our technology deployment will help with this. WestGrid support is excellent, but with him is exceptional. I had to leave it somewhat anonymous, as I have not asked the users if I could use their quotes yet. So. An emerging theme from all of the data in every single section, no matter if you're asking about the website or if you're asking about training or you're asking about the documentation, new user support is critical. I personally experienced this because I ran my first WestGrid job, and I'm going to be putting an article in the next newsletter about it, so I invite you to read it, because then I was on the other side of things and I got to check out the support that I was getting as a new user, and it is overwhelming. People are writing more entry-level information. They go to the website and they're overwhelmed. It's so technical and it's a very steep learning curve. So really putting some resources into the new user support will be critical. Training, as I mentioned, parallel programming, but a lot of people also wanted more on scheduling, managing jobs, object store, which a lot of people said, I don't even know what object store is. We need our users to know what this is. So Patrick will speak a little bit more about it today because it'll be a wonderful, useful technology. Bioinformatics support. Many people are unaware of the resources in terms of the personnel that we have standing by to help our user community. We're hearing a lot about the need for fast file transfer, large shared memory, secure computing. Some of these things will be addressed with our next technology deployments, but some of these we just still continue to work on. We're trying to identify our gaps by domain and institutions, and we hope to have a report to stakeholders with all of our findings from the survey soon. So thank you once again for your feedback. It's very valuable. In terms of future planning, we're hearing that the governance and management structures between Compute Canada and all of the regions are very confusing from the user perspective. And there's a lack of clarity between what the roles of the regions are and what the roles of the national organization are. So we're on a national level working through this, but within WestGrid, we are also working on this. So WestGrid is not a legal entity, so that means we can't enter into any contracts, that we can't actually employ staff, and there's a lot of hurdles related to this. So the plan is to go forward with incorporating WestGrid as a Canadian not-for-profit corporation. And this we're hoping to achieve in the next 6 to 9 months. So this will help us define our governance model, work on our strategic goals, gain some independence from Compute Canada and some clarity between the roles and responsibilities, and also form some partnerships in Western Canada. So this will not have any direct effect to the research community, but we do hope that it will help for a better experience using WestGrid overall. So in terms of the funding update, Compute Canada received notification of funding for operations and our next stage of capital for the period for the next 5 years, 2017 to 2022. Overall, the response related to our funding was very positive, and this is still confidential information until the funding announcement from CFI, so I can't give any more details at this time. But what happens is this allows us to proceed with stage 2 site selection to select our additional national host sites in addition to the first 4 that we've mentioned many times. And it also allows us to move forward with our next stage of technology planning to start bringing some of these secure computing environments and more GP systems and experimental systems into the fold. So the review committee did select technology option 1, which you could find out more about that in our MSI2 submission, which is on our website. So overall, the key take-home message is that this will result in new, more infrastructure on the floor over the course, hopefully, of the next 18 to 24 months. So I will pause there in case anybody has any questions for me. So, excellent. I will pass it over to Patrick, our Director of Operations. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, that was great. I'm Patrick Mann. I'm the Director of Operations for WestGrid, and I'll be looking at the technology and essentially picking up on and amplifying what we heard in the last 2 town halls, just giving you some updates. So next slide there. We'll just keep going. So Lindsay briefly talked about object storage there and mentioned it. So this one sort of keeps coming up, and it's really the major new Compute Canada service. But really, it sounds like the community is not really very clear on what it is, and that's from various surveys and discussions. So I would love to spend sort of the afternoon on discussing object storage and all the good things you can do with it and what it does. Instead, I'm going to have one slide, the next one please, to just kind of give you a flavor for what this kind of thing is. It was introduced, I think, more or less by Amazon years ago when they introduced their cloud, the first of the big public clouds, and it was called Amazon S3, the Simple Storage Service, and the emphasis was on simple. And that is still the emphasis. Instead of thinking about a big shared file service with lots of directories and POSIX file standards and complications. An object store just means that, that there are objects. There's a way of getting them, usually a RESTful, a URL. You can get and put them. And that's kind of it. Very, very simple. Underneath the hood, that allows the developers to write some really very, very nice characteristics. And in particular things they can do is that the objects go into the object store and they get distributed across many, and what we've called SBBs, storage building blocks. So a storage building block is just a bunch of hard drives. Objects go into the object store, and because there's no sort of overhead or infrastructure involved, it's relatively straightforward to stripe them across and to end up, in fact, geo-replicating them as well. So you can have a very, very robust system with your object, whatever it happens to be, distributed across multiple building blocks, multiple drives, and multiple geographic sites. The drivers for a lot of this were things like YouTube. A video is an object. It's you create it, you stick it in, and then people want to get at it from essentially anywhere in the world. So you have to introduce maybe some advantages, some extras like caching and such. But fundamentally, underneath it, that's what YouTube has, a big object store. So a big flat data set. And the application itself, like YouTube, allows you to search. So all the metadata, all that kind of thing, you can put in big, powerful SQL, NoSQL databases. So the emphasis on an object store then becomes reliable and available. It's available pretty much anywhere. The object store itself can distribute out whatever you ask for, and it's very, very reliable. For things like YouTube, where you're talking about hundreds of petabytes of storage, things like tape backup is very poor. It's hard to get it all on tape, and then it's almost impossible to get it back up. So you want it online all the time. And one other point I wanted to make was that you expect in object stores that people don't access every object every time. There's kind of a sparse access pattern where every now and again you want that object, and then you want another object, and then somebody searches for the third object. And it's very random. You never quite know what movie, what video somebody's going to ask for on YouTube. And when we started thinking about this and started looking at especially some of our bigger users, folks like CanFAR with lots of experimental and observational data, the ocean networks, exactly the same thing. It's the experimental data. These data sets come in as objects, and they're not naturally hierarchical. They are flat. When another researcher wants to grab it, they do, and they might want, for instance, a time series. And that particular time series of data might never be looked at again. But you want it available whenever the researcher wants to get at it. So an object storage is becoming a great service for these kinds of big data sets of all kinds, experimental data. So it really fits that use case, and that use case we're beginning to see a lot of, both in actual use and in Compute Canada surveys and such. So there, very quickly, is what we're thinking about. And we're thinking about object stores that are multi-petabyte in size. The plan at the moment is, in Compute Canada, is that the object store will be distributed across Victoria, Vancouver, Waterloo, and Toronto. So we'll have 4 sites. So we can make it very, very reliable. These kind of standard models where we see a front-end portal where data is absorbed through the portal somehow, ingested, well, you stick it into the object store, and then there's a search analytic capability built into the portal, which of course would know where the objects are and pull them back in. So that kind of model, it's very standard in commercial systems, where many of these big YouTube-ish kind of applications are just built exactly that. A way you can upload the videos and then a search and show the video. So that model is great. So anyhow, so I'm pretty excited, as I think you can see, about object stores. I've been pushing them. We got a few projects, some of those big projects, which are going to be using object storage services. And we have decided on a vendor to provide it for us. Yeah, anyhow, so say I can keep going forever on this one and look at the details. You will see something like S3 a lot, just to finish up. That's that Amazon Simple Storage Service, S cubed. And since they were first, lots of the interfaces are S3 APIs. So we'll be supporting all that kind of thing as we go ahead. So if you kind of look at Amazon and look at all the documentation they have, that'll pretty much synchronize with the kind of service that Compute Canada will be offering. And we'll be doing some more training and such on that in the next few months. Right, that's it for Object Store. Really, really quick introduction. Yeah, let me switch gears and just review a couple of things we've already talked about in previous town halls. So the current deployment status of all the systems. GP1, that's the University of Victoria Cloud, that's done. So the new nodes are installed, and have been integrated into the existing cloud. So we've got quite a lot of new capacity there. The GP2, that's the SFU general purpose system. The RFP responses are under review, and we're all expecting or hoping to have GP2 in production available by February. GP3, that's an equivalent system at Waterloo, and the Waterloo guys, Compute Canada, waited to see what we would get in with GP2 before revising their RFP and sending it out. It was sent out, and actually they got due October 6th. But yes, the RFP bids have been received and are undergoing review right now. I've got in production for April 2017. Actually, I think we're really hoping that'll be a bit earlier than April. April 1st is when the new resource allocation are implemented, resource allocations. So it'd be great to have GP3 available in March, and that's what we're aiming for. The National Data, what is this? I've forgotten what the C stands for. We've changed our mind. National Data Infrastructure and National Data Service that's the file storage service, and that's essentially a replacement for Silo. The SFU, Waterloo's received their SBBs, those storage building blocks, and SFU is in the middle of receiving them. The tape backups have been installed. So this is a delay. We rather expected to get started on this actually now, rather than expecting it a bit later. I put October 31st, but of course everybody's working hard to try to get those in as quickly as possible. Sergey will discuss in a minute or two about the delays involved there, because our key problem is getting the Silo data off Silo, which is going to be decommissioned, and onto the national data storage systems. That object store, we have purchased a commercial version from DDN, and the initial prototype is being installed on the cloud and tested. Since object stores are new for us, it's going to be a while before we get into that. I put January 1st, 2017, but let's say early 2017, depending on what we learn about how to install these kinds of object storage systems. The network national team is working with the preferred vendor just to test it out, see what's going on. So they're working directly with that vendor to see if it's the right gear. I did discover that Waterloo's now got 10 gig to their site, which is really good. They were running at 1 gig previously. Parallel file system, bids received. Scheduler, the bids are received. And the big parallel machine, LP1 at U of T, well, that's still early discussion. Those won't go in until later in the middle of next year. Anyhow, so a quick overview of the current deployment status. Lixon, did I see your hand?
Yes,
you're muted, I think, Lixon. Oh. Lixon is from SFU and may have an absolute up-to-date.
I'm now muted on my side, so I don't know. Okay. We
Okay,
received
anyhow,
just a quick
yeah.
update. I got a phone call.
Yeah, I'm not hearing Lixon. I'll just keep going here. But
Patrick, we can hear Lixon,
okay.
or at least I can. Can you hear me?
Oh, I know what the problem is. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Lixon. Yeah. So next slide.
Oh, well, stop. You're not looking at anybody? Patrick, can you hear us?
I can. Yeah.
Okay, we can hear Lixon. Lixon was coming across fine.
Yeah.
So Lixon, do you want to continue?
Sorry, everybody. That was my fault. I'm trying to interact with the room here because we get feedback if I have my speakers on. So I just turned them on.
Oh,
yeah.
Just quick note. I received a phone call. There will be 5 SPB3s to be delivered tomorrow.
Cool.
One already received. So we hope, and I hope we get contractor on site quickly, at least install some of them, and we can turn a few on late this week, early next week.
So everybody can, I can see we're the team. Lixon is in the site team at SFU, and everybody is just working as hard as they can to get these systems in as quickly as possible. So that's really, really good news for us that those SPVs have got delivered. So we'll have fun racking and stacking all of those shortly. Yeah. Next slide. The cluster decommissioning hasn't changed much. Edmonton, Hungerby, and Jasper for the end of this year. Hermes and Nestor for March 31st. Calgary parallel has been extended to March 31st, 2018. So we're going to keep parallel going for another year, and many, many thanks to the Calgary folks for supporting that. Canada has generally been attempting to keep as many systems going for as long as possible, just so we keep that overlap period before the big Toronto system comes in and takes up the slack. Similarly for UBC, we're working on that one. Not quite sure if we can keep Orsimus going, but we'll try. Winnipeg, the Grex system is scheduled for March 31st, 2018. We have an issue there in that the storage system is pretty old and won't be supported beyond the end of this year. So we're working with the vendor and with other alternatives to try to keep that storage system going for the extra year. Yeah, so not too much of a change, but again, trying to keep these systems going for as long as we possibly can. Next slide. Right, so that feeds into the silo migration itself. But before that, any questions? Nope. Looks good. Okay. Sergey, over to our site lead at the University of Saskatchewan.
Hello, everybody. Sergey Stepanenko, University of Saskatchewan. So from our previous town halls, we anticipated migration from silo to begin in early October. Due to several delays with equipment, it's not longer available to us. So we are aiming at November, preferably first week of November, to start migration. So any details regarding a particular schedule and particular information and instructions for user schedules for first week of migration will be sent out as email to selected group of users. That instructions will contain all information regarding schedule, what to do, where to go, what system available, and what credentials to be used. Another point is, previously we indicated that the general notification will be sent ahead of time. At this time, we don't have enough time window to send multiple notifications, general and specific to users. So we will limit notifications only to users that schedule for migration. to mitigate the delays with hardware deliveries to new sites, we're working on extending support for Silo for additional several months. So in terms of timing, it will not change anything for scheduling. It just pushes us past December 31st when Silo was originally scheduled to be decommissioned. So next slide. So as I said, delayed start for migration will be November 1st. All users scheduled for migration in specific migration window will be notified with details regarding process and schedule. In generally, information data on Silo for that group of users will be marked read-only, so no changes allowed. As soon as data migrated fully to new storage, it will be accessible to users, and access for those users to Silo will be closed. I'd like to make sure that everybody understands that we need to, at this stage, maximize effectiveness of our transfer because time is very precious. So we will be adjusting our instructions and migration schedule as we go, and we tune up our performance on Silo and receiving systems. So at this moment, right now, we're not ready to give any particular instructions or any promises in terms of time required and how many people will be migrated per first schedule and second and so on and so forth. So that information will change from first to second to third and further migration periods. And I hope that we will be able to fit entire migration into shortest time possible. But we expect that under normal conditions it will take more than 3 months. So next slide, please. So that so this diagram needs to be updated, but to correct this diagram, November 1st will preliminary be start of migration. Migration will take time between November and February. We will not send general notice because there is no time for this. 1 to 2 weeks prior to scheduled migration window, information with any specific details will be sent to the group of users that's scheduled to migrate. At that time, data will be available for all users to read. For users that are not being migrated, also to write. Users that are scheduled to migrate cannot write to Silo anymore. As soon as migration finished for the group of people, they have no access to Silo any longer, but they have received read and write access to new storage facility. In general, this is what we hope to have as a migration mechanism. And as I said before, and I'd like to stress it more, any particular instructions will be sent to users prior to scheduled migration window, 1 to 2 weeks before that.
Right. Thanks, Sergey. Yeah, and I'd really like to thank University of Saskatchewan and the staff there for helping us out in this contingency planning as we try to work through this. And in fact, I've got the opportunity, thanks to everybody. Today I'm in Edmonton at the University of Alberta and starting to work with the guys here about Jasper and Hunkeby and the decommissioning there and where we put users for them. So lots of work going on, and it's been great to work with the various sites and the institutions. Yeah, next slide. I don't think we had any questions. Didn't see any there. Yeah. So this slide is essentially identical. We haven't done much more on the compute migration. So just to remember, the rack allocations will extend to April now. So January, February, March. GP2 should become available in February. GP3, well, say we're aiming for March. Hopefully there's some overlap period when we can do some testing and get some beta testers on. The software and application stack is still being developed. The research support national team is working through the software, the software details and the installation processes and procedures. So they'll be ready when GP2 and GP3 become available. As we said last time, documentation details probably early in December. Yeah, next slide. There's nothing really new there. And again, for Hunger Bee and Jasper, just as I mentioned, I'm here now, and we'll be working away on that one. We have what looks like a bit of an issue in that Hunger Bee and Jasper are scheduled for December 31st, and GP2 should only become available in February. So we're working on some fallback plans, things like providing resources on other systems. And to re-emphasize, I mentioned this last time, Hunger Bee was that very large shared memory machine, and current plans, Compute Canada plans, do not include such a replacement machine. But some of those nodes on GP2 will have very large RAM, so 3 terabytes. We'll be contacting large memory users. And again, feel free to contact me if this would be an effect on your research. Yeah, next slide. A little update on resource allocation. The RPP competition, the notice of intent letters were provided to. That first phase went out last month. The notice of intents were submitted, and I think letters have now gone out to all the successful applicants. As far as I could see, almost all the unsuccessful ones, it was just that when we looked at it, it wasn't really a platform or portal, and it should have been in the RRG. So we just moved them over to the RRG. Those competitions start today. So in theory, the web forums will open up today, and one can start working on the full applications. And in fact, I see that one of the head developers is here in the audience right now. And I think did it open up? 3 p.m. 3 p.m. 3 p.m. Mountain Time. Yeah. Eastern Time. 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay. So they'll be opened up. They're the due dates. So we're working through, as well as trying to implement plans for some of these delays and such. We're all working through the resource allocation process this year. And just to note that, the WestGrid staff are all available, so give us a call, the usual rack@computecanada.ca or support@westgrid.ca. And there will be an info session on Thursday. So I'd encourage everybody to join into that, where Compute Canada will discuss the details of the rack. Next. The cloud resources, I thought I'd put a little slide in here just to note that the cloud resources will be in the rack forms and the way that they weren't in there last time. Last time we did the RPPs and racks, there was really no place to put requests for clouds. We were more focused on the straightforward legacy job-based stuff. And this year, the Compute Canada has introduced cloud requests. There is a rapid access service which will give you equivalent to the default allocation. And that might be sufficient for almost everybody, where you grab a few virtual CPUs or cores, a couple of instances and some volumes, and you can use them to your heart's content. Further details available in early 2017, but I think you'll find some of that stuff in the RPP and RRG forums on the web, where if you really do want significant cloud resources for either customized software stacks or for platforms and portals, then the form will have those available there. So feel free to give us a call. That's new to everybody, new to us too. So we'll be working with that, trying to understand how we do the allocations in the cloud, which is such a different service from standard job-based stuff. Yeah, next. Yeah, I think we're pretty much finished the town hall at this point. Fall training sessions. Jana, do you want to review those? Are you there?
Hi, yes. So we have these workshops and tutorials being delivered online for our users. We've got a variety of topics coming up. As you can see, it ranges from an intro to CompuCanada Canada for humanists and social science scholars to in-person workshops on data visualization tools and techniques. Those two at UBC and UVic are focusing on the visit tool. And then we also have best practices for research data management. And then a special session that we're going to be focusing on data sequencing analysis tools and techniques on November 23rd. So we're getting into delivering some more discipline-specific sessions. If you ever have any requests for topics or training sessions that you would like to have delivered, whether it's how to use certain softwares or tools or programming languages, please feel free to email those to info@westgrid.ca and we'll try to respond to those. The user survey was really great for that in terms of identifying topics that we can continue to deliver in the coming months. And all of our information is available on our website in our training section, and you can RSVP and register for all of these sessions up there. Thanks.
Cool, thanks, Jana. Good. There was one question just here about the rapid access service, and if you noticed on the quick list, it was you get your VMs or whatever for about a month at a time. This is still up for a little bit of discussion as to what we mean by that rapid access, but the idea is that yeah, there it is. It says, I think, down at the bottom, testing development for VCU with 2 instances, 2 volumes for less than a month. At the end of the month, you'll almost, I think that the plan at the moment is that you can click the button and keep going for another month, or months after that. The idea in those kinds of cloud stuff that we're grappling with, trying to understand how we do it, is that, as is well known, if you don't have a way of essentially charging users for the way their VMs are running, the VMs just keep running. Nobody turns them off, and that takes up resources that you'd like to give to other people if the virtual machines are doing nothing. So our approach here, since we don't actually charge in Compute Canada, like for instance Microsoft or Amazon might, instead we'll ask you to tell us you want to keep going once a month, so that we have at least some way of reminding you that if you're not doing anything, please turn them off. I suspect that over the next year or so we will be revising that kind of policy as we learn more and more about how people are using our cloud. Yeah, so thanks for that. Yeah, any questions? We had a few there. Feel free to ask us, support@westgrid.ca. Any other questions coming up? No, not much. Yeah, I think that's about it. Good.
Patrick, there is one question. Someone is typing in. I think they would like to know an answer to question number 1.
What happens when my I shouldn't have put these up, should I? That was, yeah, okay. Yes, so Compute Canada is developing a matrix of where to go. So we'll have some idea of the of what each machine does and what would be a good place to go, and what recommendations are. So we'll be trying to organize that and working with users to help them migrate from the old legacy machines to the new ones. The documentation is certainly not written yet. The key problem there is that we don't have the new machines to experiment on yet. So the research support national team have got themselves organized. They're ready to go as soon as we get essentially GP2 going and see what the software stack and all the software looks like. I should note that software should be very comprehensive. We're trying to look through software in every other machine and make sure all of it is available on GP2 and GP3, the two general purpose machines. Can you run tests on the new systems? Yeah, I think the plan at the moment is to open up the new systems as soon as possible. I have to say, I don't know. I don't think we've got any detailed plans around when that would be. Again, the same problem. We'd really like to get the machines in pre-production version so we can play with them a bit and understand what's going on before we write the documentation and open up the systems for testing. But we shall be doing that. Stay tuned for later this year. Hopefully, if we get the systems in, the hardware in, we can do those tests ourselves and then open things up early in the new year. And the specific question was, how do we migrate from Jasper to where? Yeah, I think Jasper is probably going to go to GP2. Yeah, MPI computing, 100 to 400 nodes. Yeah, every time you get into this, there are lots of details. So if you're doing things like MPI on Jasper in particular, yeah, GP2 and GP3 will have fast interconnects. They won't, in the end, be aimed at very large MPI shared distributed jobs. That will be the large parallel machine in Toronto. But the large parallel machine is only scheduled to be available later on next year, so say autumn 2020. So we have to wait to have the really big machine available then. But GP2 and GP3 are both quite capable of handling the kind of jobs that we already run on places like Parallel or Jasper. So the general recommendation will be, I think, go to GP2 and GP3, but we'll have the details available in the next month or so. Autumn 2018. Oh, sorry, 2017. 2017. Thanks, Aaron. Yes, yes, a year from now. Good. Okay, I think we're done. Yeah, thanks to all the presenters, and thanks for listening.